Ringwood, Victoria, January 2015. A quiet suburban flat, a balcony, and a crime that would shock Australia. Robbie Wright was no ordinary man. Deaf since birth, living with cerebral palsy and epilepsy, he had fought through every barrier life placed in front of him. At 36, he was a champion 10-pin bowler, preparing to represent Australia at the Special Olympics in Los Angeles. His future was bright, his determination unmatched. But inside his own home, among people he trusted, danger was waiting. The crime. At the center of it all was Georgia Louise Fields, just 21 years old, profoundly deaf, autistic, and intellectually impaired, but also manipulative, controlling, and determined. Georgia was the ringleader. She orchestrated the attack, directed her companions, and pushed Robbie over the balcony herself. Alongside her were Jake Fairest and Warwick Toohey, both profoundly deaf, both drawn into her orbit. But it was Georgia who set the plan in motion, Georgia who gave the orders, and Georgia who carried them out. Robbie fell. The impact left him with catastrophic head injuries. Days later, he died in hospital. The trial. When the case reached court, the focus was clear. Georgia was the driving force. Jake Fairest was ruled unfit to stand trial. Warwick Toohey's role was secondary, but Georgia's intent, her leadership, and her actions made her the one who bore responsibility. She was found guilty of murder. Sentencing controversy. Justice Jane Dixon described the case as very unusual. Because of Georgia's impairments, prison was ruled out. Instead, she was placed under a strict supervision order at her father's home. No prison, no cell, no time served. For Robbie's family, it felt like justice had failed twice, once in the crime and again in the courtroom. Breaches and aftermath. Georgia's behavior after sentencing proved she was never just a follower. She stole money from her mother to fund a trip to Dreamworld on the Gold Coast. She breached parole repeatedly, traveling interstate to Adelaide to see her deaf boyfriend. She was required to check in, but slipped through supervision again and again. Each breach was another reminder that the system had no way to contain her. Name change and obsessions. Georgia tried to reinvent herself. She changed her name to Georgia Alston McNeil. Alston after the trains she adored, the 590M. Her obsessions weren't harmless. She was fascinated by trains and planes, symbols of escape and power. Videos later surfaced of her smoking ice inside a decommissioned train, a haunting image of a life spiraling out of control. Years earlier, a train driver had overheard her discussing plans for another murder before Robbie's. She never carried it out, but the intent was there. Legacy and systemic questions. Robbie Wright is remembered as an athlete, a fighter, a man who overcame disability to achieve greatness. Georgia Fields is remembered as the ringleader of his murder, someone who avoided prison, breached parole, and spiraled into obsession. But beyond the individuals, this case raises larger questions. What happens when the justice system has no secure facility for offenders with impairments? How do we protect victims when supervision orders fail? And how do we honor survivors when justice collapses? Closing. Robbie Wright's death was not the result of chance. It was the result of a plan led by Georgia Fields. She was the ringleader, the driving force, and the system's failure to contain her left a wound that is never healed. When justice cannot contain offenders, future victims pay the price. Robbie's story is not just about tragedy, it's about responsibility. The responsibility to protect the vulnerable. The responsibility to demand a system that does not fail twice.